Winning Plays is brought to you by FanDuel, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network.
Winning Plays back yet again as the Celtics offseason hot stove is heating up. We've had a whole 2 weeks off from the end of the season. Feels like a lot longer than that. Chris Forsberg.
Did we have 2 weeks off? Like they hired 7 coaches and then 2 days after the season ends, and now it's Bradley Beal Palooza. I don't think there was no time off.
It felt like a month to me because the last time they ended early, Danny retired the next day and Brad Stevens was elevated and everything went to didn't go to hell. Everything got crazy quickly. This was the first time where like they lost and it wasn't immediately into the draft.
True.
Like 3 years or something like that. So I don't know. I'll take it here. But things are happening. We haven't talked for a couple weeks. The Celtics have 2 new assistant coaches. Probably need to hire like 3-4 more at least to fill out the staff. We'll see. That's item one, and that's on the back burner now because we have big decisions coming. We have a lot of trade rumors. We have revisiting Bradley Beal trade rumors from a couple years ago, which is
don't dig up any of my archive.
Yeah, exactly. Go. So there's a lot here, and we also actually this was the first thing I want to talk about. I want to talk to you about your cooking kitchen series on NBC Sports Boston. If you guys have not seen this, Chris has put together a bunch of minute clips to kind of break down some big decisions for the Celtics and the CBA. And the first thing I want to know, like, where was that filmed?
It's funny. I want to say it's my kitchen. No, it's in our studios in Needham. We have this like demo kitchen, and so we've always joked that we need to parlay it into something. And maybe that's why I don't feel like the season ended forever ago, because we did that last week at some point over the course of a day. And in my mind, I'm like, how long can 5 minutes of segments take to film? When you're working with me, it can take forever. So and you could probably tell what I did. I interviewed smart people first. I went to fellow Winning Plays host Ryan Bernardoni, and then I got Bobby Marks on the line, and I was like, explain this new CBA to me so that I can sound smart. And then we came up with this idea of like, because we just kept saying like the NBA is cooking up this new CBA, and some even smarter people at my place came up with the idea to do this sort of retro kitchen theme. And so I hope I hear a lot of people say they're visual learners, and I'm probably in the same boat. Like, you can tell me something, but until I see it. So if you'd be so kind after you listen to Winning Plays to go click on some of those links and watch me toil in the kitchen, me destroying pies that we got from like Wegmans or something. So it's been fun, but now we're cooking up a whole new every day that it changes, right? Everyone goes right from the CBA to like, okay, how do we cram Bradley Beal into that pie? And so now it never ends.
Well, let's just get Beal out of the way, because that's the hot topic du jour right now, and I don't think we need to spend more than 5 minutes on it. I just think it's you kind of broke it down well as well yesterday.
Yeah.
On NBC Sports Boston. If this was going to happen, a couple years ago.
Yep.
And now we're at a point where Bradley Beal has tailed off. Not that he's bad now. He's probably mailed it in for a Washington team that's kind of stunk, but the numbers are not supporting the fact that he is not a supermax player heading into his 30s.
And people know we have Derek White, right? Like, you know how you get all the production of Bradley Beal plus defense? Play Derek White 30 minutes. Like, sometimes I think we overthink this stuff a little bit. And like, I think the other part of it too is, and I'm sure we'll be writing this a 1,000 times coming up, but Derek White is going to be extension eligible coming up. And it's going to be a big deal because the Celtics have to figure out, how to retain him long term, and what's the number that you're willing to pay? Can you lock him up now? And people are going to say, $30 million a season for Derek White, and lose their mind. But when you don't probably have Malcolm Brogdon on the books at that point, and you're looking a little different. But like, to me, Derek White is the third star of this team now, right? Like the way he played in the postseason, the way he complements your star players. So I get it. I spent probably way too much of my life pondering ways to get Bradley Beal to Boston. But just as you said, once he signed that Supermax, it got really hard. And then if that wasn't enough, like even with that new Supermax, I was like, okay, I could see a way where, he uses that no trade clause to sort of power play his way to Boston and would have to do the Anthony Davis and be like, that's the only team I'm going to, and you're gonna take like a bad trade and to make that happen. One, as you said, the play in recent seasons doesn't give you much reason to want to do that. And two, the new CBA has pretty much crushed every single dream of that happening, because there's just no viable way to carry 3 Supermax players without just totally stripping your supporting staff and bringing on the supporting cast and stripping your ability to use all these mechanisms as a second apron team. So I just don't see the roadmap. And unless Jason Tatum goes to the Celtics and says, yo, the only way I'm re-signing is if you go get me Bradley Beal, that forces your hand. But I don't think otherwise it's something that the Celtics would truly, really ponder.
Yeah, it's if the only way they could do it for this year, but that would be just the year.
Mm-hmm.
Like they can really push all their chips in on this season with those 3 guys. But but then it completely.
Do you think Bradley Beal makes them?
No, and I don't think that necessarily guarantees anything. Like, what is that going to get you?
All of a sudden, now I'm just writing how I'm mad that Derek White isn't playing over Bradley Beal in crunch time. So
what have we learned? What have we learned?
I know. So I look. I think Bradley, just as you said, I think Bradley Beal would be invigorated by a potential trade. I think there would be something to the idea of like how excited him and Tatum would be to play together. But sometimes those things are just like way more fun in our mind than they are in reality. And I just think the Celtics are at a different stage in sort of roster building. I think even since the infancy of those rumors, the strides that Jalen has made. And I know people are still so angry about the playoffs and Jalen's 8 turnovers and everyone's ready to trade him and Grant and blow this thing up. And it's overreactionary to me. And so everyone who says, because the most common response to my little tweet yesterday about that I don't see the Bradley Beal pathway, and everyone's like, we'll drive Jalen to DC. And I'm thinking, if you think that Bradley Beal is a better option than Jaylen Brown, then I don't even know where to start with you. And I can't even have that conversation with an irrational fan base.
Yeah, I mean, is he a better postseason player than Jaylen Brown? Like historically, that can. Do
we know that answer?
We don't know. We don't even know. Like that's the only debatable thing. He's not a better regular season player than Jaylen Brown at this point in his career, and that's I think the bigger, more important.
People understand he makes the same amount of money that you're worried about paying Jaylen Brown, and commits the same number of turnovers that you hate that you hate about Jaylen Brown. And so I do think some of that would be cleaned up. I think the kind of looks that Bradley Beal would get in Boston would be amazing. I think, he definitely plays the sort of position that could maybe better accentuate Jaylen Brown. And if you want to have a conversation about like how you're getting the most out of the wings, I get that. I really do. I just can't help but feel like the ship has sailed. And I'll continue to say that until Bradley Beal comes out and says the only team I want to go to is Boston, and Jason Tatum starts power playing, I'd really like to stay in Boston, but I need to see like Bradley Beal in green. And then that changes everything. But until that point, I'll just kind of keep repeating myself.
Yeah. It seems in my head, the only way, and this is, it fully seems like Beal could be traded within the week here, to Miami,
maximize
whatever
the cap situation,
Milwaukee, exactly, like whatever scraps an Eastern Conference contender has available for him for the Wizards, I will say. The only way if things somehow go haywire with Jalen is the only way this gets revisited. I feel like now, which I don't think is going to happen now, or maybe it happens, at the end of next season if the Wizards hold off a year. Then I think it gets a little bit interesting because at that point, Jalen is on the Supermax, is eligible to be dealt at that point if things don't go well this year. And if Bradley Beal is still hanging out there and still kind of holding his cards, and then those whispers become louder again. All right, let's take a break here to hear from our sponsor, FanDuel. Baseball season is in full swing, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. Just go to FanDuel.com/Boston to join today. Now, right now, fallen during the MLB season, the Red Sox have been up and down. It's been a rough run for them lately. And to be honest, if I'm looking at bets on the Red Sox right now, their offense has been terrible lately. So I'm betting the under on those run totals in a lot of these games lately because the Daves have not been putting anything on the board. But you can check those out and a bunch of other possibilities. And don't forget your chance to make your first no sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Just go to fanduel.com/Boston to sign up. FanDuel, the official partner of Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball trademarks user permission. 21 plus and present in Mass. First online real wager only. $10 deposit required. Refund issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 14 days. Restrictions apply. See terms at fanduel.com/sportsbook. Hope is here. Gambling helpline, ma.org, or call 1-800-327-5050 for 24/7 support. Play it smart from the start. GameSenseMA.com or call 1-800-GAM-1234. And now back to the show. But short of that, this summer, it's close to, barring them giving up on their long-term future, building a team around Jason Tatum for next year. It's hard to see anything happen. So we went over the 5-minute limit on that. That was too much. So I'm more intrigued now for the I, like you, in this past week, I have started to dig deeper into the CBA.
Yeah,
I've started to listen to the experts. Started reading the document itself, which is
oh boy,
it's a real.
Even
a real
I didn't go
barn
down that slippery slope.
I didn't make it all the way through, but there's a lot in there, and I think the biggest thing in there that you've covered that we've already got to do is that, like, the interesting decisions that need to be made in the next couple of years, and how many will be pushed forward to this year. And I think the front and center one is something you wrote about today, something I'll be writing about in the next week at Mass Live Zoo, is Grant Williams now.
Yeah.
Because the situation with him, can they bring him back? Sure. But there's a couple of things. If you bring him back now, then you're probably saying you don't get your mid-level this year.
Right.
Barring another bigger deal down the roster. And you also are putting yourself in a much tougher spot next offseason and the offseason beyond that in terms of managing this payroll. So I've heard all sorts of different takes in terms of what their direction is. Like, what does your gut say in terms of how this is going to play out right now?
My gut says they have to maximize every asset they have moving forward. And so whether it is retaining Grant on probably slightly above mid-level, like non-taxpayer mid-level money, and just sort of figuring it out from there. I thought it was really telling, like, to sort of kind of go back to, going into the offseason, and even before I really dug into the CBA, I knew that there was going to be a money crunch somewhere. And I kind of wondered where it would come from. And I think if you look at the roster at the end of last season, the one thing you come away with is there was some, imbalance to it. And so I'd asked Brad about it during our sit down after his end of the season press conference. And I thought it was interesting. Like, without really steering him, he said, we got to kind of look at the roster and decide, like, what spots are our priority. And to me, that was sort of hinting like, okay, our front court wasn't as perfect as it could have been. We had good guys, like Muscala had a good stretch after getting acquired. Luke did his thing early in the year, but it was clear by the end of the season they needed another big. And it was clear too that they had too many guards. And so, like, if you're going to prioritize something this offseason, I think,
and they have no wings.
Grant, yeah, like, you gotta have guys like Grant. You probably need even another upgrade there. And, like, so for me, it all sort of probably our next topic. Like, I don't think Malcolm Brogdon's here next year, and you did a great job writing it up on Mass Live. Like, I just think you have to start exploring trades that cut salary and probably get back some sort of backup big that can help you deeper into the future. So, long-winded way of saying, I think Grant, unless a team swoops in with this, like, crazy offer, is back here next year. And I think he's actually, like, in a much bigger role. I think you start thinking about, like, is him and Robb the right starting front court and moving out to the bench? If you're going to invest, you might as well try to figure that out. And, again, even if bringing him back doesn't mean he's here for the duration of the deal. It's just a matter of, you need good players or good potential players, and you need to maximize those assets. So unless someone swoops in, and I just don't see the team that's giving Grant $17 million per season. Yeah. So, and then that's probably something I probably didn't stress enough in the article, because we originally was supposed to be one big article, and then we spread it out over 5 days. So, like, when you look at the teams, Detroit and Houston, like, teams with cap space, like, is he like Grant Williams as a priority?
Yeah, right. It's like, no. I want that voice.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we can have another fake fight at a practice and do that whole routine again. So, Yeah, I just think ultimately it comes down to Grant test the water. I think teams are going to be very hesitant to lock up cap space with this new CBA, and so like even getting offers could be difficult. And I think ultimately they settle on. I've sort of landed at 452, probably maybe right around what he was thinking or what he got offered
Yeah,
last off
it
season.
might be
And
worse, to be honest. He's like, because
yeah,
when you look at it, like to your point about the teams, there's 7 teams of cap room. Rockets, Spurs, Jazz, Thunder, Pistons, Pacers, Magic. In theory, that could have more than like
the Magic
who
have 94 bigs.
they have 90 exactly. They have 94 bigs, and none of those teams is A, like a win now team,
Yep.
and B is a team that is gonna be like, yeah, we need like Grant's gonna be the adult in the room to like no, like they have bigger fish to fry, or they want to like rent
Preserve it.
out that cap space for like picks and other good stuff, like
Yeah.
tying it up on a restricted free agent here. And this is where like the rules changed for restricted free agency with this new CBA. It's only 24-hour wait period. So it's like some stuff is still in favor, is leaning more towards the players on that front. But that's still like
Yeah.
not the market you want to be going into if you're Grant Williams here, especially coming off the year you had.
Yeah. And so, I mean, part of me wants to absolve Grant from like he got put in a tough spot. Like Joe inexplicably benching him in March was weird, and like credit to Grant for kind of hanging in there. Think about I think I forget it was February or March or whatever I wrote. I've already forgotten. He gets DNP'd. He comes back. He has that Cleveland game where he does the I'm gonna make them both, and then misses both and costs him a game. Then he goes and has the end of that long road trip, has a chance to win it. Freelances going to the hoop and gets
I
blocked
forgot about
by
that
Walker
one. Yeah.
Kessler. It was like a really bad stretch for him there, and he could have gone and just kind of disappeared for the rest of the year at that point, but hung in there and was a game too late getting him in there against the Heat, and didn't have a great end of the Heat series either. So, he's got to definitely improve if he's back here. And yet I think the opportunity will be grander. And I think in general, he's the sort of player that they should yearn to have on this roster, unless you can find an upgrade somewhere else. And then again, that changes the calculus too. Celtics have to know going into this offseason, are they confident they're going to be able to move Malcolm Brogdon for stretch 4 type or a 4-5 type that or another wing, whatever the case may be, whatever they think they can that eliminates Grant's redundancy. Then maybe you just move on.
I'll answer that question for you there. No.
Ooh,
No,
ooh.
they can.
Yes. Like I don't see the roadmap. I don't think Malcolm Brogdon's fetching that type of player. And we were doing the early edition the other night, and Tom Giles brought up this great point. He's like, I'd love to have a Josh Hart type. Yeah, those players aren't available to you right now. Like I don't see the roadmap to getting them sign and trades or whatever. Sign and trades are more difficult now, and first aprons and second aprons, and I don't even know the rules right now. God bless you if you've read that document, because I still couldn't figure it out.
This is the only season where you like can still kind of do some of that stuff before it all goes away. And this is, I talked about a little last week with B-Jax on here. Like he brought up too, like them not doing anything at the trade deadline didn't hurt, obviously hurt to a degree during the postseason based on injuries and how things kind of played out and who there's a debate like would Joe would have trusted a Josh Hart or whoever they could have gotten there, a Sadiq Bey, if you will, just another shooter, someone else. Like who knows if that, I mean, we don't have to talk about it. But now it's like
and now the Pirtle decision, like how do you feel about that? Like I'd probably relitigate that. I was pretty anti-Pirtle at that point for the price, but then when you saw what he went for and knowing what that gap ended up being, that hurts a little more.
It does. So, but now moving forward, now it's like okay, so like it would have been nice to have, and Pirtle's different. You'd have to pay Pirtle, so that's a different. Right. But like, there's a lot of guys, whether it was a Vanderbilt, who I know you were big on, whether it was Sadiq Bey, like who are under contract for cheap this year, which would have been a big boon in this new CBA when you might lose that ability to add anything above a veteran's minimum if you want to keep Grant, which I think we both agree that they should for the right price here. And now, losing that ability, having your trade chips on the roster, like, listen, I wasted yesterday morning, Chris, going through all 30 NBA teams to be like, to find some Malcolm Brogdon trades. And let me tell you, there's not a lot of Malcolm Brogdon trades out there that makes sense.
Was there anything you liked?
It is, I mean, trades that I could go for like a Norm Powell trade.
Right.
That's probably like the
Would
most
they do
appealing
that?
one. Well, exactly. But would the Clippers like Malik Beasley like to get again?
Mm.
You're losing some production, but you're getting out of the long term part of the deal, and you get an expiring. You can move that contract again and get an upgrade without having the long term money attached. But that's a
You,
downgrade. Like that's a
can you
you're.
spin me any Nas Reed sign and
Oh my
trade with?
god. I
Yeah,
don't think I can. Not if you want to keep Grant.
I know.
It's
So,
like
but if you got Nas Reed, then maybe you're. I don't know. There's no right answer here. The fact of the matter is, the bottom line is, I keep going through this, is there's going to be a talent downgrade as
yes,
early as next season.
right.
You could punt that to next off season, but now you're going to have every team in the league looking to shed money, and it gets more difficult to move salaries at that point in the matching of it. And I don't know necessarily if you can afford to wait to that point, because then you're really kind of putting yourself in a spot. So
Like,
good
do you
luck,
push all
Brad.
in
And
now? Do you push like what's your guts? Like, do you take the long road here and say, hey, we want to start. We're competing for next year, and maybe you use a first round pick this offseason to try to you know toe the line of being like you have to downgrade some places. But what again, like how big of a downgrade is Malcolm Brogdon to Payton Pritchard? Like it is a downgrade, but to what extent? If you can use that to upgrade other parts of the roster with a first round pick and stuff like that. So I look at it being like, yeah, like on paper it's a talent downgrade, but do you have a better, well-rounded roster top to bottom now? Can you build that? Can you put the better players around Jalen and Jason, which to be honest with, and I don't want to like pile on too much on Brogdon, like he was not in crunch time situations this year. It was not great with him.
No, and so it's funny because like I feel like we could do a whole Brogdon podcast. It's so weird. Here's a player that, and that's sort of how I started my CBA series, was like the Celtics signed him last year, and everyone's like, here's this guy that was sort of the missing piece. And for a lot of the year, it felt like he was. Like he had some great spurts. The scoring was like crucial off the bench and giving them offense. But if you had asked me what I thought the Celtics were getting in Malcolm Brogdon when they signed it, when they made the trade last year, I would have said, playmaker, steady ball handling. Like he was a bit of a black hole. Like when he got that ball, he wasn't passing it. And I think there's this misconception about, because I hear people saying all the time, start him over Smart. Did he ever pass to Jalen this season? How many lobs to Robb did he not throw? And that's not like, maybe he just leaned into this role of, okay,
he's not a true point guard.
Exactly. And so I think ultimately what it comes down to is you have enough at that guard position where there was redundancies, a bit into Derek White's playing time, Derek's development. You said Payton Pritchard, which, we'll see what happens there. Like Payton Pritchard and Malcolm Brogdon are not both going to be on the roster next year. It'll be one or the other, and they'll trade one of them. But if both get moved, if like Brad gets wild, I'm ready for the JD Davison era. Can you do worse for a third, fourth guard? I'd like to just see it. You got to start drafting and developing guys. And I know he can't shoot right now, but you don't need him to shoot. Just like run some pick and rolls, get everybody involved. How many lobs to Luke did he throw at the end of games? I know it's trash time, so I'm getting overhyped here. But I just think they need to start.
It's theory, like he's gonna be back on a two-way, and maybe he gets some you'll see what he has in camp.
Yeah,
like you'll see what he has in summer league.
So whether it's the 35th pick, whether it's Jan Madar, whether it's JD Davison, like you can fill a backup point guard role with something if you need to. I just think
a good veteran minimum guy too. Like there's gonna be a lot of guys in the market.
I just think they need to better allocate their resources, and Derek White's development has forced that issue. And if Marcus Smart is a long-term piece of this core, unfortunately, Brogdon's the guy that's going to have to kind of get moved. And but like as you said, it's tough because I'm not sure what the value is for a soon-to-be 30 backup. Well, I guess you'd start on some teams. I think Ryan threw out the idea of calling the Spurs, especially knowing they got cap room. Knowing, they need someone to they have a pathway to just kind of like launch into this Wemby era. Do you consider someone like Brogdon, even if you wouldn't get much in return from them, other than maybe eating the space? And if you're the Celtics, I don't know, maybe that's more valuable to you at this point, where just getting off the final $44 million of that deal, as crazy as it sounds,
right?
It wasn't the plan. Like the NBA told you for years, this is how you build a contender. You get to a point where you just kind of go all in, and then you overspend and you pay the high luxury tax. And then this year they're like, oh, by the way, That's not how we do it anymore. And you got 1 year to be ready for it. And kind of sucks for the Celtics because they did a lot of things right to get to this point, and now by no fault of their own, they've got to kind of make tougher decisions.
Yeah, like the rug's getting put out of them. And I mean,
Yeah.
the good news for them is like for the tough spot that they're in, there are probably already 5 or 10 teams that are in tougher spots.
Yeah, so true.
And
Good luck, Golden State. Good luck, Clippers. Yeah. Like a lot of those teams are just going to end up paying it and hoping that, like whatever, move our pick to the end of the first round is where it's going to be anyway. But man, someone's going to get bit by it. Someone like the end of Paul George and Kawhi, like that thing disintegrates or whatever. Like all of a sudden, those teams are in real tough spots.
Well, if you want to go the reunion route, there are a couple options for you for Malcolm Brogdon.
What do you got for me?
I got it. If you want to check off Evan Fournier, he is readily available. You maybe get a draft asset or 2 from the Knicks. Get to clear that money.
No.
To rekindle that magic. It's just the same. Like watching the finals now, it's like the Celtics wanted Aaron Gordon off that Magic team. I brought Magic liked RJ Hampton over Aaron Nesmith, and that is why Aaron Gordon is a Nugget, and that is why you were left over with Evan Fournier, and we all know how that turned out.
Really hurts. I mean, I remember I know for certain the two of us were very staunch on the please get Aaron Gordon. When I saw Celtics trade to the Magic, I said yes. No. So the Evan Fournier time in Boston did not go well. 7 trips in the COVID protocol, and not a whole lot of return on that. So plus, can you imagine Emmanuel quickly having to hear that Malcolm Brogdon is joining the Knicks?
Right, that's the thing. They haven't listed too many guards already there that are like young and good. So it would be it's. Can you give me an Olynyk? Is he got? So
Olynyk
is like, I think Danny's gonna squeeze you though. Danny's gonna be like, yeah, you can have Kelly, but you give us a pick if you want us to take Brogdon too. And so that's
up another pick. After.
So here's another one for you.
Ooh.
Marcus Morris, readily available with the Clippers. Readily available. You might even get a draft asset out of them.
Is Jerome Allen coming back as an
right? Jerome Allen will come back. Just come in. There's your power forward off the bench.
Wow.
Who's probably going to be not getting back on defense and getting blown by a lot, but he can shoot.
So are we far enough away from 2019 to forget Marcus Morris gunning for half the season, or I don't think
he wasn't having fun. Remember that was a line of practice.
Yes, exactly. Well, he wasn't wrong. Yeah. So he was a true teller, and I'll say that too. I thought that to bring this conversation full circle, I was thinking this morning as I was out getting my coffee and thinking about Malcolm Brogdon. How ironic that he's the dude who goes to the podium at the end of the year is like, we just never tapped into the defense that we did last year. The worst rotation defender on the team is calling you out. And it sort of just crystallized. I was like, that's it. That's this season in a nutshell, man. Like the Celtics just never quite got it.
All right. I have one more for you to wrap up.
What do you got? Is it a reunion?
Another reunion. Or 2 options. I'll give you 2 options.
We're gonna how much I love getting
We're going to go down to Charlotte. And we're going to say Malcolm Brogdon and Gallinari for Gordon Hayward.
Oh my goodness, I'm all in. I think I would do that.
I know. And the problem is, who would not do that? The Hornets. The Hornets wouldn't do that because they wouldn't want an extra year of Brogdon. But on paper, you're not. Again, you're adding more money. You're getting rid of long-term money.
What would be great?
How you better fit?
If the Hornets drafted Scoot and traded for Brogdon and just went all point guards with their roster.
Right. Just get Terry there. I wonder if Terry is going to be available.
Oh,
based on what they do at the draft.
I don't know if that's the right fit.
That is another. He has a long-term deal now, so that obviously that doesn't solve. Yeah. You're creating more problems.
Although he's anybody who's on these, like it's so funny. Some guys on 22 million are not acceptable deals. Some guys on 22 million might be good deals. It's so funny. Like I would. I don't know. I don't know if the reunion route's going to work.
There's not a lot of appeal on the reunion route. We just went through, but it's hilarious going around like the 30 teams. Maybe half the options were former Celtics on bad like mid-level deals now.
What's PJ? So again, to tie the Grant thing into it. I can't go to the Hornets. The Hornets aren't going to want Malcolm.
The Hornets, they're not because they're going to probably re-sign Bridges. They're going to probably re-sign PJ Washington. And then draft someone, and then may sign a mid-level guy. Like,
let's do this. Like, let's get work reverse. So, what do the Celtics need? They need like an elite sort of power forward type that will eventually take over Al's role or can step in and move Al to the bench and maybe make Grant expendable if you did decide to move on, or maybe there's a sign again, like they're endless of possibilities. So how do we get Wendell Carter Jr.? Like, can you, like, what's the overpay to get him? Or are they too committed? I know they've got a million bigs. So
they have a million, but you're right. So it is, let's see, like, I mean, so he's under, wow, he was on a real bargain deal.
Yeah, that's the thing.
So that's the one that would really fit into your budget nights. So it's a question, I think for him, it's like, how many first round picks are you willing to include for him to like get the win now piece?
Yep.
When you Brogdon's your salary filler, if you will.
Mm-hmm. So if I called them and said Brogdon, or like, you know, what is his number? What is Wendell Carter's?
So Wendell Carter's only 13. So you actually get like
you could do sign and trade Grant.
Sure.
Plus picks. So you're sort of giving them another option and overwhelming them with picks. Like, I don't know if Orlando cares about picks at this point, but every team in the NBA should. So, okay. I don't love the overwhelm with picks option. You know, there's people say, just send the Wizards a million picks and figure out the salary. Like, I'm like, I don't know if you can do that anymore. But if you were going to push all in, going for someone, a young player on a good contract like that is probably the overspend I would rather do than necessarily. So
because that's sustainable, because that's a guy who can it's going to fit your books for the three. So it's like if you're giving up draft capital, that's one that has staying power, as opposed to what you end up doing with Brogdon. You thought that was going to be keepable, and now you're just like, oh, it's only keepable for one more year probably.
So essentially, if you do something like that, you're moving again, and maybe you move Brogdon out separately. There are ways where you could shed. So like, now you're taking Grant out of the equation. You're moving that 13 million back in. You're potentially you're tiptoeing around not being in the tax if you did something like that. Mm-hmm. And again, it depends on what you have to take back for Brogdon. So I think avoiding the tax would be a priority for a team that's going to be repeater heavy in the very near future, especially, you know, 2 summers from now, once both those deals kick in. I think those are the creative type of deals that Brad Stevens ought to be thinking about.
I like it. That's a good way to keep an eye on the value deals on teams that may not necessarily. I mean, Carter, I think it's going to be a tough sell because he's young enough, and the Magic they might just really like him. But I think those are the type of deals that the Celtics should be. You
have to hope they draft a power forward or something.
Right. That's true.
Which Lord knows, based on their history.
Don't do that.
Then maybe they need to clear some room, and you got all those Wagners and so, I don't know. But again, that's sort of the creative thinking that I think they need to do. And that's what I thought they did last year, even with the Brogdon thing. Before this new CBA, the Celtics thought, like, what do we need? Let's maybe overpay for it. Although that deal at first blush wasn't overpay. It just that's what if I'm Brad Stevens and Mike Zarin, those are the moves I'm trying to cook up.
All right. Well, we'll be watching that closely in the next 2 weeks here. In the meantime, keep watching Chris cooking at NBC Sports Boston.
I'm gonna go cook up that deal. Like, I'm gonna throw the apron again.
That's the next video.
Can't
put
wait.
Together. Check him out on Celtics Talk Podcast. We'll be back here. We'll gear up next week. Draft week. We'll probably have a couple pods for that. We even have.
Do you have anybody I can start? I'm very scratched the surface of draft research. I have no idea.
God, no. Nope. After the last 2 years, it's off the table. I'm fully expecting this to be dealt for a future first or something else along those lines.
Ooh, I like that idea.
But yeah, until they show us that they're going to pick someone outside the in the top 45, I'm not diving deep into the
first pick of the Brad era.
So it's gonna be a big one. We'll see if he's
if they use it.
If they use it.
Very Belichick-like.
But all right, thanks for listening, guys. We'll talk to you next week.
CLNS Media's Celtics coverage is brought to you by FanDuel. New customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win.